Shalom. Shalom and welcome, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to the inward man. My name is Symmanayah, and these are the reflections that are stirring what's inside of me. This is the 33rd episode or installment of the inward man. My brothers and sisters, it's time for you, for us, to awake. Awake, O Yasharal, for it's time to acknowledge the Most High Yahuah's drawing power. It's time to recognize what it means by lifting up Yahusha Mashiach, as mentioned in John 6:44 and John 12:32. It's time, my brothers and sisters, to discern and put to test the spirits that are within us, to see whether they are indeed the Spirit of the Most High working and stirring what's inside of us, as it states in 1 John 4:1. Awake, O Yasharal, for in acknowledging the drawing power of the Most High, we will see the 144,000 in great multitude begin to come together like never before. In this segment of the inward man, I want to bring your attention to the treasure hunt. Yes, I call it treasure hunt and set apart gifts. Treasure hunt and set apart gifts. Before I get into it with scripture, my brothers and sisters, I want to just bring to mind those of us who believe in these final days that there will be a final exodus, that there will be a gathering of Yasharal from the four corners of the earth. Those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, those who are called and who have been chosen to fulfill the gathering from the four corners of the earth. You may say, Symmanayah, what does that have to do with a treasure hunt? Or what does treasure hunt have to do with set apartness? And I submit to you, there are many who talk about the final exodus or the final gathering of Yasharal. But how many of us have given thought to the characteristics of such a massive gathering? How many of us have given thought to the work that is required for a final exodus? How many of us are able to discern how important every member of the body of Mashiach Yahusha, every member is important and vital. Case in point, a final exodus. What do you think would occur if we start gathering together to return to that set apart place and not one person among us know how to sew or cut or stitch a garment? Do you think that's important for us to be clothed? What do you think it would be if we gathered together and not one person among us knew how to care for the elderly, the sick? What do you think it would be if we came together and not one of us had the skill sets to take care of a baby, an infant, a child, or work with the children? What do you would think it would be like if none of us knew our directions from north, south, east, and west? What do you think it would be like if there was none among us that has the fortitude and physical strength to carry another? What do you think it would be like if there was no one that knew sign language for those who could not hear? What do you think it would be like for those who do not know sign language, for those who cannot speak? Or for those who cannot speak, what would it be like if we didn't have anyone that knew how to understand what someone is saying? What do you think it would be like if we didn't have those who had the wisdom to bridge together the conflict as we are refined by the Spirit of the Most High? I can go on and on and on, my brothers and sisters. My point is, every member of the set-apart body of Yasharal has a vital and important part. The cook, the cleaner, the child care provider, the physician, the warrior. Those who have different skill sets, many of which I have yet to touch the surface on. So every member that have been gifted by the power and might of Yahuah in Yahusha's name has a skill that is important for the body of Mashiach, for Yasharal. And I say to you, my brothers and sisters, we know that we have been scattered. We know that we have been divided. We know that we are divided to this day. And many of us speak and cry out and yearn for the day of unity among a set apart family. With that said, my brothers and sisters, I have listened to many different camps, many different fellowships, and I've seen tidbits or fragments or crumbs of things that are absolutely true. But when we stumble and fall, that crumb, some use the term nugget. But I'm going to say, if that crumb is covered with errors, misinterpretations, misunderstandings, but the crumb itself is true, then we must identify what is true and watch the Most High bring all his truth together. Who's aware of the parable when Mashiach fed the multitude, specifically in John, when they gathered the pieces together after feeding the multitude and filled 12 baskets? I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, John 6:13 says, so they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with broken pieces of the 5 barleys of loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. And it goes on to say, let's see here, I believe that's the one. This is after he fed the multitude. And when they gathered the fragments, the 12 baskets were filled. I say to you, my brothers and sisters, just as this parable talks about gathering the fragments and 12 baskets filled, so will Yasharal, the 12 tribes that have been fragmented and scattered, will be gathered together. And we will see that all that is set apart, all that is necessary to fulfill end times will come to be. And we will be filled with the Spirit, walking in obedience, worshiping and growing in set apartness. With that said, the subject, treasure hunt. Can we hunt down? Can we identify the treasures, the nuggets of set apartness? Can we identify and discern the things that are true and let that which is true come together? Do we have the fortitude and strength to bring into subjections all misinterpretations, all misunderstandings as led by the Spirit of Yahusha? Whether we believe it or not, it is written in Hebrews 12th chapter that the Most High disciplined his children. It is also written in Revelation 3:19 how he disciplined those who he loved. With that said, trust and believe that we will come together, O Yasharal. Trust and believe that there are treasures scattered among the face of the earth. And it is our job to worship and obey, to identify with his living Spirit, not straying from his 10 commandments, nor straying from his laws and statutes, but understanding what they mean fully, understanding what it means to walk filled with the Spirit of Yahusha, our teacher, guiding us, setting us free from strongholds. What is this treasure? Let me present some scriptures that I am compelled to believe identify that we, O Yasharal, set apart children of Yahuwah, are indeed that treasure. And we will come to discover one another. And in discovering one another, we will begin to identify set apart gifts working within us. Let me present to you, O Yasharal, the treasure. And as I said, that treasure are the skills, is representative of the skills each and every one of us have. There is no skill that is meaningless. Every skill, every talent that you, that me, that we have received that contributes to the building practically and naturally and spiritually of the body of Yahusha is important. And we will see this to be fulfilled in the coming days. I wouldn't want to be on a journey and not have any clue of how to put together a garment. I wouldn't want to be on a journey and not having people that know how to deal with children or babies or someone that understands physical health. Every member. Or someone that understands that there are natural ways to clean. There are natural ways to wash. There are natural ways to conserve. Someone that knows how to cook, take something that is minimum and make it so it can spread amongst many. Treasures. Our skills are treasures. So let me say this. Come with me, my brothers and sisters. Come with me to Psalms 119, 162. Chapter 119, verse 162. It reads, I rejoice at your word as one who finds great treasure. Do not the word of the Most High work within us? Can we not find great treasure within us, that being the power and might and presence of our Savior? Proverbs 15:6 says this, the household of the righteous is a great treasure, but in the income of the wrong is trouble. That was Proverbs 15:6. Matthew 13:44 reads, again, the rain of the heavens is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man having found it hid, and for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Are we prepared to sell all that we have? Are we prepared to present our bodies as that living offering for the treasure of the Almighty Father? Are we prepared to make sacrifices among one another for the sake of building and binding together the set-apart family of Yasharal, the set-apart children of Yahuah? Let me also read 1 John 4:1. Beloved ones, do not believe every spirit, but prove the spirits, whether they are of the Almighty One, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. How many of you are aware that when someone is digging for a treasure, they have tests? If they're digging for a diamond, they want to see if that stone, is that piece of glass, is it really a diamond? So there are tests to prove whether it's a diamond or not. If it's gold, there are tests to prove how many carats of gold, how pure the gold is. There are tests. 1 John 4:1 talks about don't believe every spirit, but prove the spirit, test the spirit to determine whether it's of the Almighty One. And I say to you, as we seek out the treasure of Yahuah, one another, as we walk in obedience, there are tests. There are questions that we will ask one another. There are things we will look for to see if indeed one another is walking for the sake of worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father. 2 Corinthians, if you would, join me in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 through 10. It reads as follows, and we have this treasure in earthen vessels, so that the excellence of the power might be of the Almighty One and not of us, being hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, being perplexed, but not despair, being persecuted, but not forsaken, being thrown down, but not destroyed, always bearing about in the body of the dying of the Master Yahusha, that the life of Yahusha might also be manifest in our bodies. Treasure hunt. Are you prepared, my brothers and sisters? Are you prepared to realize that every member has a skills, some of which are written in the scriptures, some of which are not, but are akin, and that links to the building of life, the building of an awakening nation? Join me now as I move to Romans 12th chapter. Romans 12th chapter. Verse 1 through 8 reads as follows. Romans 12th chapter. Come with me, my brothers and sisters, and read this chapter with me, verses 1 through 8. I encourage you to take the time, if you like, to read the entire chapter. But right now, I'm going to read verses 1 through 8. Romans 12:1. I call upon you, therefore, brothers, through the compassion of the Almighty One, to present your bodies a living offering, set apart, well-pleasing to the Almighty One, your reasonable worship. And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of the Almighty One. For I say, through the favor which has been given to me, to everyone who is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he should think, but to think soberly, as the Almighty One has given to each a measure of belief. For as we have many members in one body, but all members do not have the same function, so we, the many, are one body in Messiah, and members each one of one another. Now having different gifts according to the favor which has given to us, let us use them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the proportion of belief. If serving, in the serving. Or he who is teaching, in teaching. Or he who encourages, in encouragement. Or he who is sharing, in sincerity. He who is leading, in diligence. He who shows compassion, joyously. There are many different gifts and many different skills, my brothers and sisters. Let us not think of one more highly than the other. Let me also read, and I just read Romans 12, 1 through 8. Let me also read 1 Corinthians 12, 4 and 5. And I would also encourage you to read the entire 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians. But I'm going to read verses 4 and 5 of the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians. And there are different kinds of gift, but the same Spirit. Who among us, my brothers and sisters, can discern the life in that? There are different kinds of gift, but the same Spirit. There are different kinds of service, but the same Master. That was 1 Corinthians 12, 4 and 5. Ephesians 4, 1 through 8, I would like to read. It says, I call upon you, therefore, I, the prisoner of the Master, to walk worthily of the calling which you were called, with all humility and meekness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, being eager to guard the unity of the Spirit of the bond of peace, one body, one Spirit, as you also were called in one expectation of your calling, one Master, one belief, one immersion, one Almighty One and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. How many of us have grown to discern what it means by the Father being in us? Are we not the vessels of the Most High, or some will say the temples of the Most High? Our spirits joined with the Most High. My brothers and sisters, we have become one by the acceptance and embrace of Yahusha HaMashiach. Let me continue. Ephesians 4th chapter. I want to read 7 now. But to each one of us favor was given according to the measure of the gift of Messiah. That is why it says, when he went up on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. Gifts. Ephesians 4th chapter. Read it, my brothers and sisters. Read it and understand the importance of the treasure we have in this earthen vessel, as I mentioned earlier in 2 Corinthians 4:7. Read it, my brothers and sisters, for as Yasharal come together, we will identify the various gifts. We will come to realize what Romans 11:29 means. 11:29 says, for the gifts and the callings of the Almighty One are not to be repented of. He gives us a gift. He doesn't give it, snatch it away, give it, snatch it away. As far as the natural spirit, I should say the spiritual gift that has been given, and oftentimes the skills that we have received from the Most High, they are not taken away. We may abuse, and for that there comes consequences. But He will refine His children. He will discipline His children. We will grow to be refined and polished. Those who will indeed fulfill the final exodus. Those who will fulfill the things that are ordered by the Most High. Those who will be known as the children of obedience in these final days. Remember, O Yasharal, it is written in Hebrews 11th chapter, verse 1, and belief is the substance of what is expected, the proof of what is not seen. It starts with belief, my brothers and sisters. Belief. Discernment is when the Spirit of Yahusha reveals, and we must indeed believe and know His voice. And we can grow to know the voice of the Spirit of Yahusha by studying, by praying, by earnestly seeking Him with all intents of worshiping and obeying the Almighty Father. It's not just simple as saying, I want to know the truth. I want to discern the truth. We cannot make Yahusha HaMashiach revealed to us, but we can seek Him earnestly. We can knock at the door earnestly with all intents to worship and obey Him, and learn how to respond by listening and discerning what his words reveal to us, what he reveals to us. It is not something that we command, it is something that he commands. Hebrews 11:6 says, but without belief it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to the Almighty One has to believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. There's a degree of belief, a degree that brings us into obedience, a degree that brings us into improved worship, O Yasharal. Romans 10th chapter, verses 13 to 17. Come, read it with me, my brothers and sisters. Romans 10th chapter, verse 13 through 17. It reads as follows. For everyone who calls on the name of Yahuwah shall be saved. How then shall they call on him whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? And how shall they proclaim if they are not sent? And it has been written, as it has been written, how pleasant are the feet of those who bring the good news of peace, who bring the good news of good. However, not all obeyed the good news. For Yeshayahu says, Yahuwah, who has believed our report? So then, belief comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Almighty One. Let us discern the life and the process of discerning the words of the Almighty Father, the Spirit of the Almighty Father, sent in Yahusha's name, as I mentioned often, referencing John 14:26, referencing where we see the Most High send a teacher, his Spirit, in Yahusha's name. Now consider this. There will be times when we will speak boldly according to our belief. And whether the response from what we speak happen in an instant or in due season, know that there will be times the Almighty Father Yahuwah will indeed confirm and bring to fulfillment the things that he has told us to speak before one another to one another. My brothers and sisters, set apart gifts. There are gifts of healings and gifts of tongues, laying on of hands, gifts of interpretation of tongues, understanding that the Most High will work in us, through us, where we will be able to understand clearly what we are saying to one another. And I am not talking about a gift of tongues where there is nobody to understand or interpret. I'm talking about when one is speaking a language and miraculously the Most High open the ears of one to understand what that language is, whether it's their native tongue or not. Understanding what we are speaking to one another, even when we speak it, if we say we all speak in English, we're not always on the same page. Thus the phrase say, or challenge, let us talk apples to apples, oranges to oranges. Because one man's interpretation is different from another, even in the simplest of readings. So my brothers and sisters, it is important for us to know that the Most High will bring us together. He will bring his treasure together. Treasure hunt, that requires some action. That requires some identifying. That requires some testing. My brothers and sisters, as we discover the importance of each and every one of us, let us remember. And I want to give you some encouragement, my brothers, when it comes to Yasharal on the matter of healing, on the matter of healing, on the matter of obeying and delivering commandments that the Most High has given. There will be times when we will speak what thus saith the Most High, whether we say thus saith the Most High or not. We will speak as we are ordered by the Most High. I heard a brother say, well, unless you say thus saith the Most High, I'm not going to pay attention to you. Every scripture doesn't lead off with saying thus said the Most High, but we are to learn to listen and grow in maturity in our worship and obedience. So I say to you, my brothers and sisters, if you believe you have been given a word to say, let us learn to speak it and leave it alone. Sometimes we think that we have to explain ourselves. When we try to explain things all the time, then we may overstep our boundary. Maybe the Most High said, tell that person to lift their foot up. because he got another person that's going to slide a step to help them step up. Or he may have a vehicle that pulls up to step into. But if we explain it, and I'm just giving an analogy, but if we explain it, step up. Why do you say step up? Well, because you're getting ready to walk over here, you're getting ready to go somewhere. And if we start muddying the waters by adding to what the Most High said, we will find that we have overstepped our boundaries. And that happens to many of us. Each and every one of us experienced that at some time and many times. Keep in mind, the scriptures say the flesh war against the spirit. So these things will occur. Let us pray to discern what the Most High is saying and what he's not. And this is highly possible when it comes to us walking in obedience. Remember, my brothers and sisters, everything doesn't happen in an instant. Noah was 500 years old. And somewhere between 500 years old and 600 years old, he built the ark with the instructions given by the Most High. You think the size of that ark that he built it overnight? It took time. You think that rain came right away? It took time. You think that the earth flooded in an instant? It took time. Visit Genesis 5:32. It'll tell you Noah was 500 years old. Visit Genesis 7 chapter. 6th verse will tell you Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth. So within that 100 years, an ark was built. I believe some say it took them 40 years to build. That I don't remember, nor could I find offhand. But I do know somewhere between 500 years and 600 years, an ark was built. Belief, obedience, things will not always happen in an instant. Back to the matter of set-apart gifts. We will discover times to proclaim what is not seen and wait on the Most High Father to confirm it. This will happen when it comes to healing, when it comes to interpreting gifts of tongues. We will find that sometimes this might be a matter of understanding when it comes to understanding prophecies that are going forth, or seeing and discerning the life in the passages that we read as we study. Pray, my brothers and sisters. Moving on. Remember, in Numbers 16th chapter, we read where the earth opened and swallowed a company of men who challenged the service of Moses and those who followed Moses and Aaron. And Moses, or Moshe, or Musha, he spoke. And as he spoke, the earth opened up and swallowed. It killed households. And all the men and all those who took the side of a rebellious group. Pray, my brothers and sisters. This was in Numbers 16th chapter. So as we find ourselves hunting for treasure, as we find ourselves looking and identifying the set-apart gifts, the skills, the talents that we have found favor from Yahuah and have received, let's be mindful of those who will question it beyond seeking, but just attack it because they want to be the ones in charge, because they want to be the one recognized. Choose our side wisely, my brothers and sisters. Not everyone will be walking in obedience. In Acts 5th chapter, we read where Hananiah and Sapphira tried to deceive Kepha. And we read where instant death came upon them in the 5th chapter of Acts. So there will be times, my brothers and sisters, that we will be given a word, or we will be involved in communication that may actually result in the physical death of someone that is wicked and rebellious and evil. We see there were times it happened in an instant, in a moment, and we see where over time the power and might of the Most High exacted vengeance and wrath. These are the last days, O Yasharal. Let us earnestly seek to understand. Let us earnestly seek to identify that what we have been given for a reason. What we are perfecting has been given to us and directed for a reason. The body of Yasharal will come together, for it is stated in John 12:32 that if Yahusha is lifted up, he will draw all men. And I submit in our obedience to the Spirit of Yahuwah sent in Yahusha's name, we will witness being drawn together as one, as an awakening nation. Treasure hunt and set apart gifts, things that are critical to these final days, things that may not be spoken of as much, but is needful in these coming hours. I say to you, O Yasharal, be encouraged. Our redemption draws near. There is much work to be done. And do not take for granted what we have received from the Almighty Father. My prayer is that we grow in wisdom and discernment. My prayer is that we grow in strength and have the fortitude to walk away when we need to walk away, to purge when we need to purge, to trust and believe that Yasharal will awake and we will come together as one body. 144,000 and a great multitude will indeed rise. Until next time, O Yasharal. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, my name is Symmanayah, and I say to you, Shalum, Shalum, Shalum.